Alright, so we'll go ahead. It looks like we got a good amount, so we'll go ahead and get started. Again, my name is Sean, and tonight we're just going to continue part 2 of just some common mistakes we can run into when using Design Wizard, or just, questions we'll have a lot, stuff like that. So tonight, some of the features we're going to cover are the Rhinestone, the Boundary tool, and then creating templates. So there's probably going to be part 3 to this as well. Just so we can fit everything in. I know tonight Matt has his big live too, so I'm sure most of y'all will head over to that afterwards. So while we're working in any of those features, if you guys have any questions or need to see anything again, just let me know, and I'll try to answer as many as those questions as I see them coming in. All right, so we'll touch on, we kind of finished last week with starting the rhinestone, so we'll kind of start kind of where we left off, just touch base again when kind of adjusting rhinestones and everything like that. So again, if there's any questions, just let me know, and as I see those come in, I'll answer as many as possible. Hey Joseph, welcome. All right, so first thing we'll do, so when we're designing a lot, or when we're new to the rhinestone fonts, everything like that, we see a lot of people just kind of sizing them however they want, or trying to set them to a certain width or height to match the design or request from their customer. So one thing we'll see is, let's go ahead and open here first, and we'll go to our find fonts. We'll type TRW, and we can just use a basic 12, the 12 rounded. So we'll write Eagles out, we'll select our font, and then we'll just resize it. And this is what we'll see a lot too, is pulling, when it's this small, pulling from the sides, and then the top, and then maybe the side again. So, okay, that looks good, but I need it 7.5 inches wide, so we'll pull it a little bit more, maybe adjust the top. So with rhinestone fonts, it's very important that if we do resize them that way, we always have to pull from the corner. So it doesn't matter if it's from the bottom left, top right, or bottom right. We need to pull from one of those corners so it keeps the height and the width always proportionate. And same with up top here. If you were to unlock this ratio, the lock ratio right next to your object size, so if I was sizing this to 9 inches wide, well, if I hit 9 here, all that's doing is adjusting the width and not the height with it. So we always want to make sure that's locked up top here too. So if I happen to hit 9, now again, with rhinestone fonts, we're not gonna, we can't just tell it what size to do, but we'll see that a lot too. So anytime we're using rhinestone fonts, it doesn't matter how big you size this out or small to begin with, it's not going to resize correctly until we tell it what stone size we want to use. So up top here, you'll see your SS10s. In the drop down, you'll see some extra, and you can always add or adjust these however you want. On the left here, you'll see the quick buttons for 6, 10, and 16 size stones. So you can always left click any of these, and that will do, to those sizes as well. Most of the time, you're always going to have that SS10 drop down, so you'll probably hit this resize button right here afterwards. So the resize is telling your design to resize all the circles to 0.135. So when it does that, it's automatically going to adjust to the height to match up to those 0.13 or 0.135. So when we left click, at first it's going to pop up with resize design, and it's going to say not all stones are 0.135 inches. Would you like to replace? In most cases, you're always going to hit yes. All right, so we're going to hit yes, and it will automatically resize your design, so all these circles are now SS10. Right, so if you click on one, any of these circles, you should always see that they're both 0.135 by 0.135. So if you were to happen to pull from one of the sides here, when you hit your resize button, so instead of pulling from the corner, I'm pulling from the just top or to the side to size my rhinestone design. If you hit resize now, it didn't ask me if I wanted to replace, first of all. And now if I try to move my rhinestones around, it's all like one object. So normally when you hit that resize button, it should pop up, not all stones are 0.135. Would you like to replace? You'll hit yes. And then each one of these stones, you should be able to click on as individual stones. Right? So if you happen to, resize this just by pulling on the height or the side, hit your resize button, it doesn't ask you, and then when you click on one stone, they're all together. It's most likely that you didn't resize it correctly, or when you tried to stretch it out to see the font a little bit better, because that's what, usually that's the issue. When it starts out, it'll start a little smaller, so we want to make it a little bit bigger so we can see it, and then we'll type our new text. But if we happen to grab from the side or the top to resize, that's when we'll get the error of when we hit the resize button, it doesn't actually resize it correctly. Now I could come in and right click, break curve apart, which would make all these stones actually released. But if you go up top here down, you'll see that they're just all random circles. So it's 0.167 by 0.107, which, one, we want it to be a perfect circle, and two, that's, not even close to any stone sizes. So that wouldn't work correctly. Hey, Filler, welcome. All right, so anytime we're resizing, we always just, the main rule is just always pull out from the corner, and then you're going to click your resize button here. Now, I said like 90% or probably 99% of the time we're going to hit, when we hit this resize button, we're going to hit yes. Does anyone know when we're going to hit no instead? On what type of font we would hit no to? All right, so the only time you're really going to hit no, and if you click it accidentally, you'll see that it actually gives us the same look, or it's still the all SS10s. So the times where we're actually going to hit no is any time we have a rhinestone font that has multiple size stones in it. So we have a few fonts that we created that have like a combination of two size stones. So whether it be 10s and 6s, 16s and 10s, you're going to choose that, and it's going to know what stone, it's going to go off of whatever stone size we select up top here will be our larger stones, and the size smaller, the next size down will be our smaller stones. So if you choose 10s as your default here, it would make the smaller stone 6s. If you chose 16s, it would make the smaller stone 6s or 10s. So we have an example here. Again, we will always want to pull from the corner, but this is a script font that if I zoom in, you can see that it has two size stones to it, right? So now this is where, again, I have my 10 selected. I'm going to hit resize, and I'm going to hit no. So by doing that, it knows that it wants to make all those larger ones all 10s, and then my smaller ones are all perfect 6s. So in those cases, anything that has like a multi-stone, or any font that has multi-stones to it, multi-size stones, we would hit no when we hit the resize button. But if you happen to hit it when it's all like a one size font, which again, like 95, 99% of them are going to be like a 1 stone size. You're going to hit yes, but even if you were to hit no, it's still sizing them out to all the correct sizes. All right. So any questions on resizing fonts or? Awesome. And that kind of goes hand in hand with searching for fonts on our site. So I just like to point this out sometimes, especially when we cover fonts. So you guys will see tonight too. Cameo 3 giveaway. I'm sure most of you guys in here have already known about that, but in case you didn't, if you go to our site, you'll see how to get there. Everything's going on with that. So we have our fonts here. So when we're searching for a font, or a Rhinestone font in particular, we always want to pay attention to our preview word down here. So not every font, you'll want to look at pretty much this preview picture in general is everything the font's going to pretty much entail. So it's going to give you a lot of information. So if you haven't worked with fonts, we have one right on our first page, TRW Clean Stone Free. You should have a couple already installed with the wizard, but we do have a couple free ones on the site too. So on this preview item here, you'll see all the characters that the font's going to have. So in this case, this Clean Stone doesn't actually have like numbers and stuff like that. It just has A through Z in upper and lowercase. So not every font will have symbols, not every font will have numbers, not every font will have upper and lowercase. So we always want to look at that. Anytime we're purchasing a font from the site, we always want to look at that preview item. And then at the bottom, you'll see the word Mustangs. So over here on the left-hand side, it will say 2.8 inches tall and 11.1 inches wide. So this font, pretty much from the top of the M to the bottom of this G here is 2.8 inches tall. So if most of the time you might not have that big of or that tall of an area unless you're using upper and lower and you have like a letter that hangs down like that. So there, you might have a few, but for the most part, this font's probably going to be closer to like 2.5 inches tall if you just go from like the height of the M. And then width-wise, it's saying that the word Mustangs is 11.1 inches wide. All right, so we have 8 characters in the word Mustang. So any word, if we're looking for a certain word that we're going to use this font for or design, well, we probably don't want to use it for the word basketball unless it's going on like the back of a shirt or maybe a sweatshirt, something a little bit larger, because it's going to be too big in tens. And that's the thing too. This preview is shown in SS10. So that's that's one thing we can think of too is, okay, maybe I really like this font, but in order to use it, I'll have to use it in 6s because it's probably going to take roughly around about 2 inches off going down to like the next size stone. Maybe depending on how big the font is, it can be anywhere from like 1.5 to probably 2.5 inches of a difference from going. So this, if I did this same word Mustangs in all 6s, it might be closer to like 8.5, 9 inches wide. So then I can get away with like larger words like basketball or stuff like that. So once we pick our font, same thing in here. Once we get into the design wizard, these fonts can be set up just a little bit different than a normal font. The biggest thing we get, and this is definitely on our end too, of it actually being a little bit confusing, is I'll use this example for TRW12 rounded RF. If you look up top here, you'll see in the font preview, it says the word low. It's actually trying to say lower. and next to it, it usually would say upper. So in this case, it's just telling us that we only have this font only comes, or it's only all uppercase, because you can see it's all uppercase letters. Now, even though it says lower, that's telling us what case we have to type in to see this. So if I have a font here and I'm using all caps and I write the word Eagles and I choose this font, if it disappears on us like that, it's because it doesn't have any uppercase symbols associated with this font. So to see this font, I have to type in lowercase, which is saying right here, but the letters are actually all uppercase. So it's a little confusing with some of the older fonts that we've created, but they are, if you pay attention to the font preview, it should kind of give you all the information needed. So this one here, you can see has an upper and a lower. The zebra here is a 2-color font. So the lowercase would be kind of the outside color plus, the fill, but it gives us the outside line. And then if I went to uppercase, it'd be pretty hard to tell what the letters actually are, because it's just going to be those little inside parts. So some will have upper, some will have lower, some will just have, or some will have both. So this font preview will tell us everything that it has and what you have to type in order to see it. So again, this one's upper and lower. So if I went to title case, you can see everything there. Upper, lower, and so on. And does everyone know the difference between the RF and the SF version of each font? Yeah, so they're the same font. They're the same font. One would be used to kind of like, if I was going to do a lot of the same design with the word Eagles and I just needed this template all at once, I would use the RF version. I would resize my design, and then I would create that template to go with it. Now, if I was using, maybe if I had a bunch of names to fill out and I had to keep switching this up, instead of writing 20 last names and wasting all that flock, I would cut out the entire alphabet A through Z, and maybe a couple of the same letters, some of the vowels and S's, some of those R's, a couple extra, just so I have those so I can move it around. Then I can create, I just cut out the entire alphabet at once using the SF, because the SF would put boxes around my entire or around each letter. And then I could still hit resize, hit yes, and then each one of these would be its own template. And I would just move them around to spell anything I wanted. And I think this question came up kind of at the end of the last class, about using or getting it set up for an entire alphabet pretty quickly, depending on like what font you want to use. So you can actually do that using the Magic Weave tab here. You're gonna have this little drop down here. It will say upper and lower, all upper or all lower. So if your font, if you're here and you only see lower, then you would just choose all lower. If your font has upper and lower, you would choose both. Hey Carol, welcome. And then you can just hit create. And it's going to take that font and it's going to create those templates for you for the entire font. So depending on what type of width your sticky flock is, you know, if you have the 12-inch, I'd probably try to make them pretty close to around 10 and a half, maybe 11 inches wide. So 10 and a half there. And I would just start grouping them into just small groups, just like this. And those would be my cuts that I could send over to my cutter all at once. So then I could just group, or I grouped all those separately. I'm just going to line them up. Pull them down. And I could touch them up a little bit more if I needed to. But now I have my whole alphabet ready to cut and send over to the cutter, just like that. Now we would always want to resize. Now, so actually I should have done that first because this is still in the font format. So actually, let's go back here, resize those. Group, resize, yes, and then we could separate them just like I did, where now I did it to around like 10 and a half to maybe 11 and a half, depending on how wide you can set your flock to. Usually it's around 12 inches, so I try to set it up there, group them into little, you know, subgroups of 10 and a half to 11 and a half inches, and then you can cut them all pretty quickly that way. So we had a question: does the wizard know how to set the correct distance to the edge of each template? Yeah. So right here, you're giving it your top side margins here. So if you want those in a little bit more, you can adjust those. Now it's gonna know the height. Like it's gonna base all these off the same height to line them up perfectly. So it will do that. But if you want to adjust your side or top margin or the space in between the gutter, these here, you can adjust all those at once, or, you know, however you'd like. But you'll see how all of them are lined up across here perfectly. So you would just match up the height, you just match it up like that, and they would always line up. All right, so any questions on working with the Rhinestone fonts? Alright, so one of the last things with the rhinestone fonts in general is always trying to create our own, well, not necessarily create rhinestone fonts, but convert regular fonts into rhinestone fonts. So depending on what type of font we're trying to use, it can be difficult or kind of difficult to actually make like a nice rhinestone font out of it. But there are some of the tools that will help like make it a little bit easier, especially like one of the biggest ones we see, and I'll just stick with this Eagles font, or just the word Eagles, is trying to use like a thin or almost like a script font. I have this one here. And it makes sense, but we'll try, what I see a lot is trying to use like the island fill to do like an inside fill. Like, so we want one row of stones kind of through our design. We want it to be on the inside here. And depending on like the font itself, sometimes it'll give us an error. Sometimes it might just fill one or two spots. So I'll show you some other ways or some of the other tools that might help you design these a little bit easier, and save us hopefully some headaches too. So with the Eagles font, we'll do it inside, add stones, let's say one island, contour spacing, fill line spacing, auto, and I hit island fill. And I get that object variable with block variable not set. Details line of from TRW Design Wizard .create islands. Would you like to report? You can hit yes or no. So pretty much what that error is telling us is if I drop an SS10 stone here, you'll see it's bigger than that line that I'm trying to fill. So it's pretty much saying that there's not enough room in this font to add a rhinestone in it. So I have a couple choices. I can make my design larger, try the same setting, and it gave me a couple fills, but not a lot because it's still running into that issue throughout the design. So most of the time, even at that size, you'll probably get that error, but it filled it a couple with this font. So let's say we want it a little bit smaller still, and again, it's giving us that error. One way we can try to still get that font is using either one, the path fill, and depending on how thin your line is, it'll give us different results. So I'll just hit path fill, and let me use a darker color stone so we can see it. So here you'll see it path fills. So what the path fill is doing is going around the outside of our design, and because this line is so close, or it's such a thin design, it looks like it's kind of just putting two stones down, but it's actually going around the outside. So it's not seeing it, you know, it's placing them all around. It just so happens to be so thin that they're overlapping. So I can come here, hit clear paths, and once I have those stones there, I can either try like a merge or possibly an overlap, and sometimes that will clean up one of them. In this case, it's not doing the best. So what we could do next is try to make this a little bit thinner so they get right on top, or even a little bit thicker so it gives us a different look. So if I come up top here, do an inside, let's say 0.02 island fill, you'll see how it makes that fill just a little bit thinner. And then if I do my path fill again, it puts those stones closer together. So when I do that merge, I see more of my design. So that's one way. It's going to take a little bit of trial and error that way. The other way is our single line tool. So does everyone know about the single line? So this is almost like our perfect tool for using for a small design or script font like this. It's really nice to stone it out with some fixes, but not too many. So if you left click, if you hover over it, you'll see down here, left click creates a single line, right click add stones. So pretty much what it does is it finds this middle, it goes through your text, finds this middle point, draws a line through the entire thing, and then places stones on that line. Now the downfall of this is it is just a single line, so it's just one row of stones. So if it is like a little bit of a thicker font, you might have wanted two, it's always just going to give us one row. But you can see it's pretty clean that way. we'll do a couple edits, but you know, nothing major. You know, we can edit this in, you know, less than a minute. So the single line, just a right click will not only add or you know, find that middle point through the line, plus drop some stones for us. So with like a simple text, just one color, one row, the single line is perfect for it. If you want like a little bit more, you can use the path fill. And that's, you know, again, we got a question. If you wanted that font but thicker, would you do a contour or an island to the outside, then do a path fill? Yeah. So are you saying like a rhinestone design, but like, are this font rhinestone thicker or just a thicker font of this in general? Rhinestones. Okay. Yeah. So if we want to, you know, maybe a couple rows, we could do the same thing, but an outside fill. Try like 0.1. And then I have like that text there, where then I could start to do, and that might be a little thick. Let's do like 0.7. It's almost doing that thing with like the contour where it doesn't want to. So we'll just break that apart. And that's kind of a cool little thing here too, that let me show you what I just did, because this will happen sometimes too. Is I come over here, oh, that's why I had it set to inside. Never mind. Yeah, it's so why, you know, the Rhinestone fonts, yeah, they're gonna save you a lot of time and money that way, because you know, you literally just type it out, you hit the font, hit this or hit the stone you're gonna use, and you're done. You don't have to sit here, you don't have to edit stones. So yeah, the Rhinestone fonts are all, you know, are some of the biggest time saver when it comes to designing. But once you made that a little bit thicker, then you could do the inside, add stones, auto, island fill, and then it, you know, you could get different fill. So even with that a little bit thicker, we might have to play with the contour spacing. So when I set it to auto here, that's like about a 0.8 fill. So you can see it's pretty much the same results there. So all that means is how far off this line here do we want that fill. So you can see coming off both of these sides, our rhinestones are overlapping a bit. So if I set this less to maybe even like 0.01 and do the same fill. Oh, I did path, not island. Let's do a little bit more. Oh, we want to set that to 0. Island fill. Still not filling it that well. So it's a little bit better, but we can play around with this spacing here. So we get that, and that's too much. So we'll go down a little bit. Clear it, and then we can get different looks like that too. Again, we'd still have to highlight, overlap, and clean it up after that. Which again, the Rhinestone fonts are obviously the biggest, you know, some of the biggest time savers. Hey Mary, welcome. All right, so now we'll go ahead and get into the boundary tool. So we covered this a little bit last week when we covered the live template, the live template editor, everything like that. So we'll just kind of focus a little bit more on the boundary tool itself, when to use it, when to use the contour, maybe some mistakes we get when we see it. The biggest one usually, again, is coming with the live templates, and that's when we're going to have any type of contour in our design. which a lot of our designs have. So choose one. Actually, let me go to pack 2. All right, so design like this, we could go to find text. We could edit our design. And now I can go ahead and ungroup it. And let's say I wanted to use this for vinyl, so I just don't want too many overlapping pieces. So I have my kind of circle around my soccer ball, and I want to kind of cut around the word baseball and anything, kind of trim it like it is down here. So I go to my magic boundary tool, I hit remove shapes behind, I click magic boundary, and then my part of my design disappears. So the biggest thing with the live templates is anytime we have any type of contour in our design, we have to break it apart first. So if I hit break apart effects, and remember from last week, this is a single contour around the text. So it's not, we don't want to hit merge 3 color, we just want to hit break apart effect. So once I hit that, then I have the choice of using the remove shapes behind or the magic boundary on my text. And again, if I hit boundary here, what did I do wrong pretty much? Or what did I forget to do? So you can see in the word baseball, inside the B, the A, the B and the A here, the inside of it's completely removed. Exactly. The contour, I didn't hit the contour option at the bottom here. All right, so if I go back one step, I check contour, then magic boundary, then it keeps those little pieces inside my letter. So in most cases with text, anytime we're using that remove shapes behind, I always hit the contour because I think it looks a lot better. This bottom version looks a lot better than the top. And then of course I could come in, check or select that soccer. And that's the thing, same thing here, is if you don't have that contour check, sometimes what can happen is if this soccer ball is at a lower level or like on a different layer than this circle here, and it's on a layer that's underneath it, if I go to remove shapes behind, see how it gets rid of my soccer ball there? So if I had contour checked, it probably wouldn't have done that. But even if I did, and even if I wanted to remove shapes behind and I didn't want it to remove that soccer ball, I could just move this to the top layer by just right clicking, going to order to front of page, or you'll see the shortcut right there, Control Home, or you have that option on your design wizard at the bottom where we'll have the little F here, that's selection to front. Once this soccer ball is on the top layer, so you can see, and it just is a grouped object, so it actually still looks like that. But once this soccer ball is on the top layer here, if I select this item underneath it and do a magic boundary, it doesn't affect the top layer. So even if it was in the middle, I selected magic boundary, it wouldn't affect it now. Now, on some of the other templates, especially when we're working with clip art, most of the time we want to actually have that contour unchecked. So with text, we like to have it checked a lot because it leaves us those like inside cavities of the letters, so the B's, the A's, everything like that. Now in this case, let's say I have a design like this. We'll go ahead, we'll leave the text, but let's go ahead and switch out our line to a simpler one for a vinyl design. So I got my one color here. All right, so I'm going to hit Ungroup. Now I don't have any other contours or anything like that, so I don't have to necessarily worry. You know, I don't have to break anything apart, anything like that, because nothing has a contour. All right, so if I have my design here, let's say I want to cut out all my overlapping pieces here. I can select my lion. I go to remove shades behind. Let's set this to 0.05. I'm going to have my contour checked, and then I hit magic boundary. So these are the type of designs that we actually don't want to check that contour button, because, you know, looking at this, especially if I make like this the same color, you can really get lost. You know, it just looks weird. There's a lot going on in these areas now where it kind of has the one in the tiger still overlapping. Now they're not overlapping, but they're still, you'll see the pieces of the one behind the lion here. So in this case, when we have like clip art overlapping pieces, we usually will uncheck the contour magic boundary, so our design looks like this. So you can see the one on the left hand side is a lot cleaner. You don't kind of get lost trying to focus in on this area here. So this magic boundary button works really well too for those fonts that we created with all like the sports, the KO designs. So we have our TRW, let's say baseball player, or baseball laces. So these are all popular packs. We'll have the Eagles. Select font, hit the number 2, and it'll have those characters already, you know, cut out of your design. So that magic boundary button makes it really easy to kind of set up any type of design like this now. So even like you can create your own, or you can add to these type of designs. So to create your own, let's say you wanted Eagles, added a D. So usually I would pick some type of athletic font. See how this one looks here. We'll go to uppercase. So this one has some thin parts to it, so this one might not work too well. So I'll just go to college. Might be one under the A's that works well too. So you can do it two ways. If you want them individual, how these outsides aren't overlapping, all you would need to do is go to your text spacing tool and space those out a little bit first. And then we can go ahead and one quick way is just going to stone outline with contour, and it'll give you that outline there. But you'll just have to delete the stones, or you can use your boundary tool without remove shapes behind. Set this to about 0.1, hit the boundary, and that might be a little bit much, so we'll go do half of that, 0.5. That looks good. Then select that. I'm just going to make that blue so we can see it. Select the blue, hit another boundary, and then you're going to select that blue, select that, hold shift and select the gray, and then a back minus front, and then that will give us that two color look just like that. And same thing when we use this boundary button, you'll see how it filled in completely behind the A. So what I should have done is hit contour, so it filled it like that instead. So we'll do that. I'm gonna make these just a bit smaller. Select the blue, magic boundary. Then I just select both of those holding shift, back minus front, and then I get my cutout to the outside just like that. A little bright there. So now I can select any vector I want. So I'll go to add artwork. Good pack to pull from is the live decal and template clip art mega pack. And you can add, you can do all the same sports, you can mix it up. So let's go ahead and grab a baseball player. We have six of them here. So maybe I'll put him on the A here just so you can see most of him. And add artwork. And instead of doing it this way, I'm going to go here, clip art. Same pack, but this will let me select multiple ones at once. So go ahead and grab a basketball player. Grab a football player. Grab a golfer. We can do hockey. What is that? 1, 2, 3, 4. So bring those in. And then it's just kind of trying to figure out where they look best, so you might have to rotate them a little like that. Hockey player can go down here. Football player here. Add one more. What's the last sport we should add? We got basketball, hockey, football. I don't know if we did. No, we didn't do soccer. We didn't do soccer. So, soccer. And what letter do we fill in? We'll go with this one here. That should be good. Alright, so just line him up there. Right. So once we have those set up, you'll select the character, hold shift, select the green behind it, and you're just going to do an intersect. Go ahead and move your top layer away. click in there and you can change the color if you want to see it. So where that was intersecting or overlapping our design, it's just going to create a piece on top. And then I can come hit magic boundary, remove shades behind. It'll crop that out. Maybe set it to about 0.02, 0.03. And then it just gets welded to that outside color. And then you'll pretty much just repeat that. So it's selecting the object on top, holding shift, selecting that green, intersect, go ahead and move that down, and just click in that area, magic boundary, and then select that, weld it to the side, select both of those, intersect, move it around, or move it away, select our piece, magic boundary, hold shift, select the outside, weld, and you can virtually make, you know, any font with that knockout look pretty quickly now, pretty much using that magic boundary tool. So we have eagles, and then you can just come underneath it, athletics, a little bit taller, and so what you're saying, if I would take the time to learn my design wizard, y'all have taken all the stress and put it into a button. Yeah, so the magic boundary is one of my favorite tools, just because of how, you know, just how simple that makes it, from creating a contour, you know, extra layer around the outside, subtracting it through and everything like that. It's just one click. So text spacing, just pull that across. And then we have our new design. And you can customize it for, you know, any sport, anything like that. I really use the intersect, but the simplify, what is the difference? So the simplify, what that does is, if you have, let's just have the E here and make that a college font, make that a little bit bigger. You go to add artwork, and I'll bring in that same basketball player. Is it this one? I think it's this one. Yeah. And go ahead and add a boundary around it. So when we're working here, and so the difference between simplify and intersect, with this, I'm going to hold shift. So shift lets you select two objects at once. So I have the black selected, the basketball player, hold shift, select the green behind it. So I have those two objects selected. So simplify, what that does is, wherever this black was on top of the green, it would trace that out behind it. So if you wanted like your t-shirt showing through that area, you could, you know, have your design look like that. And let's say it was like on a red t-shirt, that's going to be your design layout. It might look better, something like that, or different color scheme. But I mean, it doesn't look bad, but you're, you know, depending on the color layout, it might look a little different. But the intersect, what that does is, I'm going to do the same thing, select both of our objects, and then an intersect. So the intersect, where that was laying over top of our green, it's just going to put another layer on top of it. So this is on completely on top of the green. It's not, you know, cut out behind it or anything like that. It's just simply layered right on top. Now you can see it doesn't, you know, it won't bring in any object that's outside of it though. So that's why it's important when we do set these up, you know, if we set it up, if we just kind of put these basketball players wherever, you know, something like that, that doesn't all, you know, that's, we cut out half of them, cut off half his head and everything like that. So that's why, like, depending on the sport and stuff, you might have to flip them around. You might have to use different, you know, characters or different players, stuff like that. Where if I have the ball outside here and I do that intersect tool, well, you're not even going to know what sport I'm playing now. You know, it could look like a shoulder pad and it's a football player at this point. So we definitely want to make sure we're, you know, overlapping in a good area where the black is on top of the green. The wireframe might help with that too, to see where it's overlapping. But that's the difference. I had a logo a customer sent to me in the vector format, but the cavities would not knock out, intersect, or simplify for me. Is there a step I might have missed? So that's a good question. And what could be happening? And if Pillar, if you want to send me that file, I can look at it for you. Sometimes, and we'll see this most of the time, it's like when someone sends us a design or something like that, or I copy a design from like a trace bitmap or something from a design online or something like that. That's when I see it most. But let's say I do a simplify. So just like we saw here, it traces my design out, right? Now what can happen sometimes, and let me do it on a completely solid object. So we have this square here. I have my design on top. I do an intersect. Oh, not an intersect. I do a simplify. So it's tracing it right now like it's supposed to. It takes that out for me. Now sometimes will happen, of course it's not doing it now. Won't even do it for me. Oh, let's try that one. Let's see. I can get the text to do it. It could be it just not reversing or automatically reversing the nodes. And it doesn't really make sense unless you can see that happening. So let me see if I can reenact that. So what I'm going to do is make that smaller and knock a little piece out of here. And of course it's not happening now. So pillar up top here, if you highlight, if you click on the area, like if I go back here. Oh, you tried that, it wasn't working either. Try smart, fill back minus front, add boundary, nothing worked. Okay, the only other option that could be is that it, I can't believe it's not working now. It's usually always happening. Sometimes what can happen too is if it's a design that someone created and like let's say you traced it or they traced anyone traced it to begin with, and I'm going around this E and I'm just going to do it real quick. and they don't completely close this line off, or it's like that, sometimes this will look like a filled object, but it won't like give you, it won't actually, like sometimes you'll actually still see like a fill color to this too. And if you go like, if you double click on the outside of the design and there's any piece that's like not closed off all the way, it could be that too. So if you were to just bring those two together, sometimes they'll just lock up like that one did. Or if, depending on how it was set up, you might have to, like, once they're together overlapping, highlight both of them and hit the weld button, and sometimes that will fix it too. But it could be, depending on, like I said, if you want to send me the design, feel free. But it could be something that just, you know, small like that. But I wish that reverse nodes would work, because I feel like that's one we get all the time. But of course, it wants to work perfect today. All right, perfect. All right, so we have a little time, so let's go ahead and is everyone good with the fonts? Or sorry, the magic boundary? All right, cool. Thank you. All right, so the last thing, and I'll keep a couple of these open just so we can make some templates. So the last thing we get a lot of questions about is our templates tab, and how to, you know, when to create templates, which templates to create, and everything like that. Depending on what type of cutter you have is going to answer a lot of those questions. So if you're ever unsure, just, you know, send us a quick email, anything like that. Or you can always, like if you're cutting a rhinestone template, you can always be on the safe side and do a stone 2+ cut. And if you're doing like a vinyl, you can always do the vinyl overcut as to be safe. That'll always work. But depending on what type of cutter you have, like you'll hear Matt or see Matt on his lives a lot of time using the Graph Tech, and pretty much on every cut we use or we do, we use the vinyl overcut feature, and that actually makes it, not only allows us to give us a little bit of a better cut with the overcut feature, but it allows us to use like our 45-degree blade instead of having to like switch it out with thicker materials to like a 60-degree. So you can kind of get, you know, if you have a Graph Tech, you can pretty much stick with the vinyl overcut for most templates or most designs, whether it be a combinations of stones and vinyl, all stones, or just all vinyl. With, you know, the ones that we work with, like the GCCs and everything like that, I've seen the stone 2+ cut work a little bit better for rhinestone designs. And then same with the Roland, you can use the 2+ cut or the vinyl. And then the silhouette, usually the stone 2+ cut works, or the vinyl overcut as well. So you can use any of those. Now, if you ever have a rhinestone design, like let's say you purchase a rhinestone design from our website, if you do that, and depending on how old the design is, let's go here, TRW, and athletic 2 color. Let's go to RF version. So we have our design here. Make that a little bit bigger. Hit 2, gives us our second color. Hit yes. So most of our old rhinestone designs are going to be separated by the TRW Magic Separator. So when you get it, you're already going to have these templates created for you. Now that doesn't have any type of like special stone 2+ cut or vinyl overcut feature added to it. So if you ever get a design, and sometimes it might not have the original, so it'll just look like this. So I'll show you a couple things with like already created rhinestone designs from our site, or if you ever, if you ever purchase one and you already have, from someone else and it's separated like this, it pretty much is already, it has the template added to it. So what we see a lot is someone highlight both of these. Okay, I want to add the vinyl overcut or the stone 2 plus cut. So then I hit stone 2 plus cut. And now I have my regular templates that I started with. Now I just have one big template that has both of them attached to one. And then I have another template of just this solid like black boxes. So what that's doing is it's thinking what you're actually telling it to do is this is one rhinestone design, not two. So it's making it all one. And then it sees these yellow boxes as part of your design and not already created template boxes. So then it puts them around another template as well. So if you see something like that, it's just because you're pretty much creating templates out of templates. So you're doubling up on everything. So you have two choices. One would just be highlighting your design and using your bonus cut options. So down here, you'll see stone overcut, stone 2 plus, vinyl double, vinyl overcut, or magic sort. So in this case, I could do the stone 2 plus or the vinyl overcut, depending on what type of cutter I'm using. And that will simply just turn those cuts into the double cut or the vinyl overcut. It doesn't, make new ones for me. So the second option would be when we have our design here in the regular templates. Now, if you like purchase a rhinestone design from us and it'll already come most of the time color separated like this. Sometimes it will have the original design with it. Sometimes it won't. If it doesn't have the original design with it, where it looked like this, where I had eagles next to it, that's okay because you still technically have the original design. All you have to do is highlight the word eagles, hit group, and you can just make it just like a different color. So and it's okay that the template, everything turned blue like that. It's just the stones are on top of it are all blue now too. That's fine, don't worry. And then we're going to highlight this one here, group that one together. You can change the color of it if you want, just to change it, but these are going to be black anyways, and they're different from the blue, so they're going to be two different colors. So it doesn't matter, but if you want to, you can definitely change it to two different colors like that. We're going to highlight both. You can hit P on your keyboard. P is in Paul. That will center up to your workspace. So both of those are just right on top of each other. Or if you go to the Edit tab, under Align, you'll have the Align center and middle. So align both of those together as well. All right, so once those are right on top, we're going to highlight both. We're going to hit Ungroup All. And then we're going to click on the corner, just kind of up top at the right corner, hit Delete, select the right top corner, hit Delete, and then it will leave us with our original design, at which point we can create brand new templates because we don't have those boxes around it anymore. Vinyl overcut, and it will color separate for us with our new overcut feature. So any questions on the templates? Awesome. All right. Well, that pretty much wraps up tonight's webinar. So thank you guys so much for coming. Don't forget tonight we have the Silhouette Cameo giveaway. So does everyone know how to find that? Awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. All right. Well, thank you guys again for coming. If you run into any more issues, just anything like this, just let us know. You can give us a call at 941-755-1696. Shoot us an email at info@therhinestoneworld.com. You can always ask for Joe. But we'll probably do part 3 and just kind of finish out some of the other tools that we might run into issues with. So if you guys have any suggestions, just let us know, and I'll try to include that. It'll either probably be later this week, or we might just shoot for next Monday as well. All right, guys. Well, have a great night, and good luck with the giveaway tonight. Pillar, I need to play around with the templates to see what I use for the cricket and for the cricket. Pillar, are you saying yeah, that's cool. All right. Sounds good. All right, thanks a lot, guys. Have a great night.